Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sarah Little. I'm Senior Manager of Business Development at ASTA, and I will be serving as the organizer for today's event. We are happy and excited to welcome Chad Martin, Director of the Northeast Region, and Shirley Ben-Eliza, Marketing Project Manager for North America for Israel. Quickly before we get started, I'd like to point out a few important features on your screen that will allow you to interact with us via the web. We will be answering your questions at the end of the presentation. To ask a question, you will use your GoToWebinar pane. Near the bottom of this pane is an area that says Questions. If you click on the arrow next to where it says Questions, it will open up a window pane. This is what you will use to communicate with us. If you are having trouble hearing the presentation, please make sure that your speakers are turned on. If you called in, try hanging up and dialing back in again. You can send me any technical issue via the Questions pane, and I will try to answer them. I will respond to you via that same pane. Please note that all audience members are muted. We certainly want to hear from you, but we have so many people on this call that the background noise would be prohibitive, and we want to ensure that everyone can hear the entire presentation. Finally, please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing at asta.org by early next week. Now, let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce you, Shirley and Chad.
Shalom! Shalom, everyone.
I'm Chad.
And I'm Shirley.
And today we're going to talk to you guys about everything about Israel travel, both from an American perspective and an Israeli perspective.
That's right.
Because we found that, while Americans and tourists are always looking at the historical sites of Israel, Israelis also have things that they like to share, much like anyone in any place wants to share their home place. So I'm going to be presenting, of course, as the American. I'm from Ohio originally.
And yes, I'm from Israel originally, and we're both right now broadcasting from New York.
Yes, as you can see right here with our beautiful faces. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about the Israel Ministry of Tourism. Ministry of Tourism has 5 offices in North America. We're sitting in the headquarters and the Northeast region. We also have the Southern region in Atlanta, the Western region with Los Angeles, and our Chicago office, and then last but not least, our wonderful friends in Canada up in Toronto. So we have all the bases covered wherever you are to help you out with learning about Israel, doing events to try and much like the webinar now, to try and educate everyone about this wonderful, wonderful destination.
And we assure you everyone is really friendly.
Yes, everyone is very friendly in all of our offices. So Israel, be inspired. I think anything that anyone that's been to Israel would say is that it's just an inspirational place, and it's kind of like everyone finds the Israel in themselves. And we're going to try to just give you a little bit of that flavor today in our presentation. Once again, I'll sort of be talking about the traditional sites, and Shirley's going to have all the fun with all of the different cultural things that Israelis love about Israel. We always like to start out with the misconceptions about Israel. We do not travel by camel in Israel anymore, not for a very long time. It's a modern country, so we always like to clear the air with that one first. But the one that's the primary concern for a lot of folks is Israel safe? And the answer, of course, from the Ministry of Tourism is a resounding yes. But we also had 3.5 million tourists just last year. So just ask one of them, and you'll for sure get the feeling that Israel is safe. Just a few statistics to throw out there. America, the United States, North America, is the largest segment of Israeli tourism, which is really quite amazing considering it's a 10-hour flight away. But it just goes to show how interested Americans are in this area of the world. Flying from Israel to London is about the same distance as flying from the East Coast to the West Coast in the States, and yet the United States makes an overwhelming amount of the tourists in Israel. Just to talk about safety really quickly.
Yeah, I could say, personally as a woman, I feel as safe, walking around any time at night as I do in the Upper West Side where I live in New York than in Israel, if not even more, any time of the day.
And basically every metropolitan area in Israel that's statistically backed up is safer than every major metropolitan area in the United States. So I think we've covered that. And the market actually reflects that interest we were talking about. Every year since 2012 has actually been the best year in Israeli tourism. And in 2016, we already know has surpassed the numbers from last year, and we're continuing to as we move in to the Christmas or winter break season. November alone was 25% higher than November of last year. So we are getting a buzz, and things are really moving in the right direction for Israel. Moving into some of the logistical issues. So in case you don't know where we are right on the Mediterranean Sea, 200 kilometers of wonderful, beautiful coastline, and that's including cities like Tel Aviv and Haifa all along the coast of Israel. We also, in the southern tip, have the Red Sea, which is, you'll see a little bit more of in a moment, with the city of Eilat.
Oh, and maybe this is a good chance to say where the airport is.
Oh, the airport is in Tel Aviv. You can't see it on the map here, but you'll see it in a moment. It's the only airport in Israel because Israel is only the size of New Jersey. So we do not need more than one at the moment, although there are plans to build one because we just have so many visitors coming in now with tourism. So like I just said, Israel is the size of New Jersey. That gives it a lot of advantages versus other destinations, and that the climate is incredibly diverse. You know, in New Jersey, which is I was just there yesterday, if you're there in the middle of January, there's a good chance that in the north of Jersey, you'll have snow. There's also a good chance that if you're in the south of Jersey, you'll have snow. But in Israel, at the same time, you can go skiing in the north on Mount Hermon, not the Alps, but it's very nice, while also the same day you can head down to Eilat and laze around on the beach. Yeah, you go snorkeling and all that other fun stuff we'll talk about. Israel does have the luxury of size, like I just said. Everything is more or less under 2 hours, most of the time about an hour.
Yeah, I mean, so you could imagine for an Israeli, if I have to travel 2 hours somewhere, I will be packing for 3 weeks. It's a very big deal.
It's a road trip.
It's a road trip.
If it's over 2 hours. So,
yeah, indeed.
It's also very convenient for touring because we have such a concentration of sites in Israel that almost every step of the way there's something interesting to see, and nothing is too far away. So it's a really good combination there. Now, how will your clients get there? It's a very good question. Not by boat. We've got plenty of airlines flying nonstop. Of course, El Al has the most flights coming from North America, but also United this year just added a nonstop from San Francisco. They originally just tried it, I think, with 5 days. They're now flying every day of the week. We also have nonstops from Delta and Air Canada. And in fact, our gateways keep growing in number. We know for a fact that El Al is adding a flight, and also Montreal is going to have a nonstop soon. So you can see all the other destinations, JFK, Boston, Newark, San Francisco, Toronto, all getting their nonstop flights. Chicago and Miami are both keeping their fingers crossed, hoping for that next El Al flight. And those all land at Ben Gurion Airport. You can also go to Israel by cruise. There are ports of call both in Haifa in the north and in Ashdod in the south, which is just south of Tel Aviv. Most of the time those cruise ships come in, they'll do one night in Ashdod, and they'll go into Jerusalem as an excursion, and then they'll go up to Haifa for 1 or 2 nights to do the north of Israel. And we'll see a little bit more of that, but this is a limited list. There are plenty of cruise lines that are going, and they're adding Israel all the time. Now, as far as when they get to Israel, this is something I frequently forget to talk to people about, because I've been going to Israel for, gosh, I'm afraid to say, getting close to 18 years, and I don't think about things like, you know, do I need a visa? Is English going to be spoken there? All those things, because I've been so many times. But you don't need a visa to go to Israel. You can book a ticket today as long as your passport is good for 6 months after your return. You are fine. It's the first world. And lastly, we do not stamp passports because basically there were a lot of people saying, I don't want to be able not to go to one country because they have this rule. The fact of the matter is, if you go to Israel, there is no problem at all going to. So you have no excuses. Pardon the unison, we're very cheesy in this office.
You can tell we practice.
And so now, why do people go to Israel, and why is there this interest? That is what I think is something we want to get covered now. Yeah. So without further ado, first things first, Israel is a unique population. It's the only majority Jewish population country in the world. aside maybe from our friends in New Jersey.
Right.
Just kidding. But mostly what I would say is that Israel is a very, very good example of actually coexistence, because you can see it's 15% Muslim and 6% are other smaller minorities. If you go all over Israel, you don't see the same story that you might hear on the media, where it's much more a coexistence and people getting along and being part of this wonderful nation, not the conflict you might hear on the news. So now we're going to go into our own little tour of Israel in the major destinations, and some time for Q&A at the end. And Shirley is going to give the Israeli perspective, like I said, and I'm going to give the American's perspective, so you don't just have to listen to me the rest of the day. So Tel Aviv is our first stop, partially because that's where the airport is, but also because it's a great intro into Israeli life. Tel Aviv very much serves a similar purpose to Israelis as New York does for us, but it's not the New York of Israel, because Israelis are different than we are. It's a mashup of 70 different cultures that have come together into this wonderful, tiny country. It's cosmopolitan. They have wonderful beach, which unfortunately we don't have in New York. 360 sunny days a year, oftentimes in Tel Aviv, and also the old city of Jaffa, and history in the fact that it's the original place where independence was declared way back when.
But Chad, you forgot about the most important thing, which is food. Tel Aviv has incredible food. If it's from street food, hummus and falafel, to gourmet Asian bistro and French, Italian, and all kinds of restaurants, it's really so fresh, fresh food, such a variety of spices and flavors, just like Israel. It's a melting pot of culture. And also, food in Israel is getting a lot of attention outside of Israel, where you have Israeli chefs that have been very successful all around the world, and also in the U.S. One of the restaurants, Shaya in New Orleans, has won a really prestigious award.
The James Beard Award.
The James Beard Award. So
yeah.
Please check in your local area where you could find a good Israeli restaurant. And may I not forget that Tel Aviv is also the city that never sleeps. It's very alive 24/7. You could find excellent nightlife, music. There's great festivals coming in all night, all day, all the time.
And of course, you can't talk about Israel without talking about the startup nation.
Oh.
Just kidding. Israel is Startup Nation. It's the second most number of companies on the NASDAQ are in Israel. It's number 2 in the most startups per capita in the world are actually in Israel, normally around the Tel Aviv area. And on top of that, a lot of books have been written about the startup culture of Israel. So that's something you just have to keep in mind, that this is a modern country. Most likely, some piece of technology you're using to dial into this very call is probably Israeli. So that's just something to keep in mind for you folks.
And another part of Tel Aviv, which I'm not sure you're all acquainted with, is that Tel Aviv has been repeatedly voted as one of the world's top 10 gay travel destinations. Every year in June, there is a gay pride with, wow, so many people, thousands of people coming from all over the world, tourists coming from all over the world just to participate. And this year there has been over 200,000 people marching and celebrating. But yeah, no, generally Tel Aviv all year round is absolutely a paradise for the LGBT community.
And then we're going to go up north. Leaving our friends in Tel Aviv behind, we now go to one of the areas of Israel that's maybe a little bit more unsung, but it's really one of the must-sees for almost any traveler, especially a spiritual traveler. The north of Israel is where Jesus lived most of his life. He's Jesus of Nazareth, not really Jesus of Jerusalem. And on top of that, it's where a lot of modern Jewish texts were codified. So there's a lot of religious history. There's also an awful lot of different archaeological history that's up there. St. Peter's house, they've actually discovered next to an ancient synagogue in Capernaum. You know, all of these different places really come to life on these journeys of faith. It's a must-see. It's also the second longest stay in most tours to Israel, simply because of that, because there's just so much scripture up there. A lot of people like to say that you can let the Bible be your guide. Now, that's the New Testament or the Old Testament in the north, to be clear. because if you start in the Western Galilee and you just keep turning the pages, you actually walk a path, and you can see that path here, where almost every stop of the way is another city or town mentioned in the Bible. So this is really where it all happened, is the north of Israel, and you can kind of see why if you're up there, because it's beautiful, it's green, the Sea of Galilee surrounded by the mountains, it's majestic itself just without those stories. Also might be important for those of you that are interested in geography, the second largest bird migration in the world happens in the Hula Valley up north in Israel, where 500 million birds migrate annually for the change of seasons. The only one that's a little bit larger is North America down to South America.
Well, from birds to wine, I guess. Well, yeah, you'd be surprised. Israel, having a big part of it being a desert, but still able to produce amazing wines. Actually, Israel has almost 300 boutique wineries and 35 commercial ones. And parts of the desert, there is a very sophisticated dripping irrigation, which allows to grow grapes. And I hope everyone knows how to say in Hebrew, cheers, l'chaim.
L'chaim.
And let's not forget in the north the superb artisanal producers.
You need some cheese with that wine.
You do need some cheese with that wine, that's true. And it's a great opportunity when you plan a trip to the north to visit families that have organic farms and make delicious cheese, honey, and so on. So really good way to meet the locals.
Okay, and now when you're up north, you have all of the green and everything else, and you see how alive Israel is. And so, of course, the next slide I'm going to take you to is the Dead Sea. But the Dead Sea is a very simple product to sell in a lot of ways, because it's not about necessarily the stories, although, of course, it's mentioned in the Bible. I also found the Dead Sea Scrolls very close by. But the really interesting thing is you're in the lowest place on Earth. You are basically you're visiting the equivalent of Everest. The Everest in reverse is the Dead Sea, and it's really fun to just float on the water. You can't sink, and it's fun. And on top of that, you always have to get your Dead Sea mud mask on. So a lot of celebrities have gotten some attention. Julian Edelman for those football fans, Paula Abdul here. And Kathy Lee, of course, with one of Israel's top models.
10 points for whoever guessed it.
So that's something you absolutely have to do is the Dead Sea when you're in Israel, and it's a wonderful world. On top of that, we have 9 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Israel, and I'm about to show you one of them, but of course we have many more than just 9 sites, but it's one of the highest concentrations of UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the world, and we're only going to add more. The sites are already there, they just don't have the recognition yet necessarily. And of course, one of those top ones is Masada. It's what made the term, zealot famous. Herod's mountain, sort of bluff fortress, that he built as his hideaway. But very famous, and everybody that goes there, just to take in the views and hear the story is quite amazing.
So from the day of Masada, here's a picture of the night. Actually, Masada, being a UNESCO Heritage Site, is also opened up to amazing events happening in that area. One of them being the opera, the Israeli opera at Masada, performing really some great opera productions like Carmen, La Traviata, and so on. It's just an incredible to have actors, for this one we're seeing here, maybe 300, 400 actors and singers performing live under the stars in such an amazing setting. It's an unbelievable experience.
Isn't that funny to be having the Egyptian play in front of, Masada, which is, of course, a Roman site. It's just something that can only happen at a few places in the world where you have that one on top of the other. You guys can hear we're in New York. Those are all the sirens that you hear in the background.
I hope you can hear us well.
We're all safe. It's fine. It happens every day.
And the desert, the desert is one of the most, in general, in my eyes, one of the most beautiful parts of Israel, but it's a great place for adventure, the adventure seekers. So if it's from jeep tours to hiking and biking, we've got a beautiful national trail which goes from north to south. We've got trails around the beaches, mountain trails, and there's even other adventurous activities like rock climbing or rappelling. You could take ATVs and drive into sand dunes. Well, not into them, I hope, but around them would be better. And let's not forget maybe to do something like glamping.
Got to class it up a little bit.
Got to class it up, exactly. For those that are not sure of the term glamping, glamping is actually glamorous camping. So that is especially for those that love the outdoors but do not want to compromise on their comfort. So you could find a place in the desert, build a 5-star luxury hotel tent, and have an amazing experience. Have a gourmet dinner right outside your tent, and wake up in the sunrise, take a hot air balloon, maybe go paragliding, maybe go skydiving. Highly suggested.
By the way, you don't always have to do it that way. We also have a wonderful experience, especially for families, is there's a place called Bereshit. There's a few different places that do it, but it's the Bedouin experience, where you get to visit with the Bedouin, and it can be as long or as short as you want. You can do it an afternoon after visiting Masada, where you have like a traditional meal. And then on top of that, if you have your explorer clients that they want to sleep in the desert, overnight, they can do that too. I did it myself when I was my first time in Israel when I was 16, and it's still something that I think about. As cheesy as it may sound, it's just a lot of fun, and the kids love it too. It's interesting.
Great. So now we're traveling right to the bottom, or to the southern tip of the country, right by the Red Sea, Eilat, where it's a great place for relaxation, for families. You could do snorkeling, you could go diving, you could swim with dolphins. And also, it's a really great point if you're interested in seeing Petra, crossing into Jordan while you're in Israel. It's very convenient, actually, to even stay in Eilat a night or two and just cross over to our next-door neighbors. Why not?
Absolutely, and that's a big reason why a lot of people do that. On top of that, with Eilat, we were talking earlier about how it's a long distance for an Israeli to go anything over 2 hours. Most people actually fly down to Eilat from Tel Aviv. It's about a 4-hour drive, but for them, it's why do that to yourself? And lastly, not pictured in what we've shown you going through the country is there is actually a trail all the way through the state of Israel. Israelis are very outdoorsy people. The trail itself, I think, takes a couple months to actually go all the way through. But many people do choose, whether it's in the north or it's in the south, to hike those different areas if they're an active traveler. And they can take any level. You saw there were 3 different lines on a rock a few slides ago. You can take any level that you want. That's the many different levels that you take. And so now we'll segue into Jerusalem. Spend a little. That's right, which Shirley is from.
That's right.
So she's going to have some special secrets to share with you guys. But Jerusalem, I think this is the one everybody knows the most about. It's the one that when they think Israel bucket list, that's the city of Jerusalem. And of course, I'm going to give you a few of those things that people talk about. The Israel Museum, for one, is where the Shrine of the Book from the Dead Sea Scrolls is. A lot of the relics that are found in Israel, archaeological discoveries, are on display there, as well as art. It's one of the top 10 museums of its type in the world, and it's one of the largest. So that is there from the modern perspective. On top of that, we have the Western Wall and the Dome of the Rock. If anything, going to the Old City of Jerusalem really shows you how all 3 of these religions were really born out of almost not just the same place like Israel, but almost the exact same spot. You have the Dome of the Rock, which is on top of the Temple Mount, which is where the Western Wall is, and just a couple blocks over, you have the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is what I have there in the lower left-hand corner, where Jesus' body was prepared. Leading up to the Holy Sepulchre are the Stations of the Cross, where Jesus walked with the cross. So, you have the Jewish history. You have also not pictured here Southern Wall, the Davidson Center, all kinds of areas that are being discovered all the time, and Shirley will talk about that in a moment. Now, the other 2 things you might not recognize are in the lower right-hand corner. That is a shot from Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. Now, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem is a little bit different because you've been to the one in D.C., which many folks do go to, and it's a phenomenal museum. It's very much a this is what happened to them kind of situation because that's the narrative that most of us have. But when you talk about Israel, it's more about this is what happened to us, but it's also how we overcame this history. So it's much more inspiring, and it's a much more positive spin on it. It's a heavy day. It's a heavy display, no doubt, but it's got a little bit more of a positive spin towards the end because Israelis do see a link between them and what happened in the Holocaust. Now, lastly, this one in the middle here is the only 9/11 memorial outside of the United States, and a lot of Americans do like to go to it. It was just opened, I think, a couple of years ago, and it's very meaningful to them and to show that Israelis really see themselves as with Americans.
Great.
So moving on.
Great, and actually I was just going to add to Chad before I go on into the fun stuff, as I like to. Yeah, really, and I'm saying this objectively as possible, that Jerusalem, it's such a special and unique city. I mean, there's nothing like it in the world. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not. Going there leaves you transformed. And I really, I travel a lot, and I can tell, I really urge you, if you haven't yet, go and make it happen. But yeah, now to the fun stuff. So so Jerusalem is also, besides the things that were, and there is a lot that's possible to do. It's still an active city. It's not only a biblical city. So there are many opportunities. Lots of festivals coming into Jerusalem as well, not only Tel Aviv, good music festivals, lots of artists coming, and lots of galleries. In the right hand, in the bottom picture, actually, I put a picture of a possible activity to do outside of Jerusalem, and that's to be an archaeologist for a day. That's a dream. Yeah, that could be, but it's a possibility that you could just go to a site, and sift through sand and find maybe a pottery from 2,000 years ago. And I would like to focus, there's something especially that I am fascinated with in Jerusalem, and that is Machane Yehuda Market. Machane Yehuda Market is the largest food market in Israel, actually. It's vibrant, it's colorful, it's full of spices, aroma. You really get to see also the people that work in the stalls. They are true Jerusalemians, very friendly, very smiley, from all from different cultures. There's a lot of activities to do around the market in the day and in the night. One would be even getting a market ticket of like stops, of things to do in the market, while I would say like a treasure hunt. So you could get a card with 10 things to do and go around and meet the shop person or the stall people while trying all the bits and pieces and deliciousness that's over there. You could also have a day with a chef, go shopping, buy produce, and then go and cook gourmet dinner together.
Like a workshop.
Like a workshop, yeah, exactly. And finally, at night, when the market is closed, Machane Yehuda Market transforms into one of the most hippest nightlife areas in Israel, actually, even surprisingly more than Tel Aviv. Well, Tel Aviv is huge, so but Machane Yehuda is, okay, let's say just as Tel Aviv. We're at the bottom right, you can see one of the most famous restaurants in Israel, Machane Yehuda, is a place where you could taste gourmet food, which is the menu is changed daily with the produce from the seasonal vegetables, etc., from the market. And at night, you could dance and party and sing and go to another 20 bars that are around in the area. It's very, very, very fun.
It's something to do. And by the way, the market is called Machane Yehuda, and the restaurant is also called Machane Yehuda.
Thanks for helping.
So that kind of concludes our short little tour around Israel. Again, we'll have some time for questions at the end if you have any. But we hope that you've seen sort of the diversity of offerings that we have while you were on this little tour. And now we'll get more into the nuts and bolts, and I'm going to just sort of delve right in right now. One of the first questions that agents have is, where are the clients going to stay? What kind of product do you have? Well, first things first, we've got it all. And even in the last few years, we've seen a lot of different things happen where we've got a lot of boutique hotels opening. We also have a lot of luxury properties opening. But on top of that, it can be anything, whatever your client wants, we can do. We have anything from hostels to the Ritz-Carlton. And here are some of the luxury names that we've had for, both old and new. Of course, the King David is part of the Dan Hotels. It's the most famous hotel in all of Israel. But also, other brands that you know and are familiar with, such as Intercontinental. Like I already said, the Ritz-Carlton, the Waldorf Astoria in Jerusalem opened just a couple of years ago. And we have a Kempinski opening in Tel Aviv within the next year or so, as well as another Israel, which is one of our luxury brands in Jerusalem. So a lot happening on the hotel scene in Israel, a lot of new and a lot of luxury, but also a lot of everything that anyone would want. Moving on, ways to sell Israel. Look, we take every single kind of travel, but there are certain types of travel that I think some destinations do better than others, and in particular, group tours. There are just so many different ways that we can accommodate groups in Israel. First of all, from the pricing, majority of the hotels will honor one free for 15 for a regular group, or for a pilgrim group, it can be as few as one free for 5 for your tour leaders if you're going after the group market. On top of that, our tour guides must do a training, which is basically a master's degree in all of Israeli history, all of the Bible, all of the content. It's about a 2-year process to get that certificate to be an Israeli tour guide. So we take that very seriously, the information about our country and our destination, to make sure that people are getting an educational experience. So all of those things are certain niches of ours that we're very good at, and are elements and ways for you to sell the destination.
And yeah, now and kind of getting closer to the end of our presentations and kind of over the end of our tour, I would say, is showing you how much Israel has to offer and how diverse it is. And really, we could cater for anything from adventure, wine, tech, culture, faith, so on. So anything is possible with Israel.
Basically all of these themes that you see in front of you here, they don't have to be the only aspect of your tour, but we're certainly capable of doing any mix of them, whether it's exclusively a faith-based tour, or it's one where people want to take a little bit of wine and mix it with some ecotourism and culture and heritage.
Yeah.
So it's a whole smorgasbord that you have to work with when you're planning a program to Israel. And now I like to always talk about what I say, the people that make the magic happen. Both Shirley and I are a little unique in that we haven't really gone up through the rungs of government to be in our positions. We both worked in the travel industry much like you folks. So the Israeli tour operators, I have to say, they're second to none when it comes to the quality of experience. If you hear people coming back and raving about Israel, yeah, a lot of that is the destination speaking for itself, but the people that bring it to life are the Israeli tour operators. And I get a lot of questions from people saying, who's good, who's this, who's that? The luxury of representing a place like Israel is much like, we take a lot of pride in our tour guides being good. Israelis are inherently competitive people. There are no bad Israeli tour operators that are whether they're preferred, not preferred, they're all very, very good, most particularly the ones that are the registered on-sites for the various consortia. I hear very few complaints when people come back, so feel very comfortable working with those partners. Yeah. They are fantastic. And
they can make the impossible possible. They are really, will be your best friend.
And we're here to help. Tying into that, if you do have questions and you are looking to book Israel and you're really, you want to know what direction to turn to, I'm not saying you can't come to us and ask which tour operator is good. I can tell you that we will always work with you to find ways to narrow down your search and to try and help you to find the right program for your client. Obviously, we aren't necessarily favoring anyone over anybody else, but we're here to help you in this entire process.
Right. And yes, just want to introduce for you the different websites that we have. So Israel.travel. You don't need a www for that one. So Israel Travel is our general market website, and also it's also for the Jewish market. And we've got 2 Christian market websites. One is holylandpilgrimage.org, and then we've got landofthebible.com. Where Holy Land, the difference between them is Holy Land Pilgrimage is more for we'd say the Catholic market, and the Land of the Bible, the evangelical. And we've also added our Flickr account where you could download some beautiful photos, some of which are in this presentation, you're able to download them for free and enjoy them and then share them.
And just lastly, tying things together, ways that we can help you. That's just our social media we're talking about. But ways that we can help you is, first of all, by having events in your area. We frequently do have travel agent events, and we welcome you to participate in those. Additionally, we do have co-op funds available if you want to promote Israel. And lastly, I'll just end by saying that having sold Israel myself, and I know Shirley would say the same, there's just no more meaningful destination to send your clients to. There's no more rewarding a place than one where people come back really transformed, much like Shirley was saying, because it's a place that just touches people in so many different ways and in no way that any other place can. So we hope you've enjoyed our presentation here. We kept it a little bit short, which was an effort for two people to do.
Of course, we're leaving some time for any questions and answers. So please feel free to send out some questions for Sarah.
But as they say in Israel, toda rabah.
And yes, toda rabah.
Great, thank you so much, Shirley and Chad. That was wonderful. So we do have several questions coming in. I just want to remind everyone you can use that questions drop down in the GoToWebinar pane to type those questions into us. So the first question is in regards to the food in Israel. So just a couple questions on if it is all kosher or you know, kind of what the options are like there.
So there are really endless options, both kosher and non-kosher. Anything is possible. I mean, Israel being predominantly Jewish caters a lot for kosher. I would say that a majority of restaurants, I would put Tel Aviv as an outsider a little bit because it's very cosmopolitan, but I would say the majority of restaurants do cater for kosher, and it's kosher in different levels. So really it's something that that would be quite easy to navigate in Israel.
What I would say is, and I came most recently from the hotel side.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the hotels are kosher. You can find non-kosher restaurants all over Israel. Tel Aviv is actually one where it's about 50-50, maybe even more non-kosher than kosher. But of course, cuisines change with people. And one thing to keep in mind about Israel is it's a locavore country, meaning almost all of the food is grown locally and very, very fresh.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as strictness and kashrut, which is what we call the kosher laws, it's not something you might even notice if you're just a tourist in Israel, because things like Israeli breakfast are the largest breakfast you will ever see. And no, there's no bacon, but the salmon and everything else is just amazing, you know. So
right. I hope we answered the question. If we need to,
No, that's great. Jumping right on to the next one is just kind of back to the safety. So Shirley, I know you talked about that quite a bit. Is Jerusalem, would you say you feel very safe in Jerusalem at night as well? Just had a few questions on that.
Oh, I would definitely say, of course, coming from Jerusalem, there is just a general feeling of safety walking through the streets. I don't know if I hope I can explain it right. Of course, it's a lot coming from feelings, but in Israel, the culture is a very warm culture, and it almost people are kind of watching out for one another. It's kind of hard to explain if you haven't been to Israel before, but the thing is that I always feel safe because it feels like there's always someone kind of watching for your safety. So I have never, ever experienced any uncomfortable situation, and we also see from the statistics that it is a safe place. I would say we're saying, especially for incidents or crime. So this in statistically.
Well, what I would say is, you know, there's in every city that we have, you know, particularly New York where we sit right now, there are places that we don't go. So there are those places in Jerusalem, but by and large, anywhere that a tourist would be going in Jerusalem is incredibly safe. It's
incredibly.
It's no other way for me to intimate that.
Great.
It really is. I mean, I think it's very important to hear feedback of travelers coming back, because that would be one of the first things that you would hear a traveler after visiting in Israel would say, it feels and it is incredible.
And on that note, just because I think the follow-up to this regarding security, looking at it as an agent, there's a few things I would say. Number one, this question is quicksand. So talk about it quickly, address it however you feel most comfortable addressing it, and also deflect it. What do I mean by that? Tell them to talk to somebody they know that's been to Israel. I will tell you with full confidence that just about anyone I've ever met that's gone to Israel comes back saying, I felt so safe. Let them hear it from their friends. Let them hear it from other people that have been. Let them get that testimonial. And number two, don't spend a lot of time on it, because the weird thing about talking security is even when you're trying to allay concerns, the more you talk about it, the more scared they get. And I don't know why, but they just start to get more uneasy rather than less because you're sort of overcompensating. That's my recommendation.
Great. Thanks so much, Chad. That was really helpful. So next question is there a best time of year or season to travel to Israel? And I've gotten a few questions about this, both regarding the seasons themselves and the weather and climate, and also if there's kind of a busy season or a time to avoid traveling to Israel.
Okay. This is where it is a little bit complicated because, like we said, we have 3 major world religions that all have their center in Israel. So there are many peaks, semi-peaks, and shoulder seasons and things like that. By and large, the off peak almost all over the world, except maybe the Caribbean, is going to be January, February, and early March. That's going to be your least expensive time to go to Israel. It's not as warm during that time of year, but a lot of times people that come that time of year are really looking for the religious sites anyway, and it's a lot of the pilgrim travel is that time of year. Beautiful times to be in Israel, I always say, are in early November, really almost all of November, any time in the springtime, but then you do have certain periods that are a little bit busier, such as during Passover or during Sukkot, which, by the way, a lot of American Jews don't observe Sukkot, but it's known as Feast of the Tabernacle also to the Christian community. Those are incredibly expensive times to come to Israel.
I was just going to say,
Avoid them.
Try it. Hotels are really, really crowded in that time, and prices are more. So if possible, shift it to different dates than the holidays, the Jewish holidays.
Now, one thing also is plus during Passover, there's no bread. Like basically in the whole country.
That is traumatic.
So it's something you want to be prepared for. Now, other times that are busy, and maybe this is an attraction, maybe it's not, families tend to come at the end of June and the end of December, much like other peak times, right before the kids go off to camp. Very busy, very expensive time to go. For the empty nester type, 50 plus, I always recommend the sweet spot is probably November. October, it depends on when the Jewish holidays are, but October generally is a little more expensive than November, but very similar weather. August, September, and the whole summer, it's very hot. That doesn't bother some people. Some people like to be in places when it's very hot. Some people do not. I would say if you don't like extreme heat, again, try to focus at May or November.
Spring or autumn.
But the inexpensive times, I know I'm throwing a lot of times at you guys, but it's a kind of a complicated picture here. The inexpensive times would be September, as long as the Jewish holidays aren't in that September.
Right.
November, which I've already recommended. Early December, the winter months. And that's about it. Once you start going after that and there's other times, there's varying degrees of expensive time.
So sorry, just to add to Chad, I know we've answered it really detailed, but it is a very important question. And I think just adding to Chad, the winters in Israel are so mild, and the prices are significantly lower, which would be, it's actually really nice to travel in January, February in Israel. Yeah, you may get some rain, but it's not really comparable to winter, let's say here.
Anything can go in the winter in Israel.
Yeah.
You could get 70 degrees, you could get 40 degrees.
Yeah, but mostly you'll be fine, and you'll enjoy it, and you'll be very comfortable walking around.
Okay.
Great.
I think we've answered every possible scenario.
Sounds great.
Who's coming to Israel?
Great. Let me hop on to the next one. What area would be the best for someone looking for winery tours? Is there one specific area for that, or kind of all over?
Well, actually all over. There are 5 wine regions in Israel. I think Chad might be going up to the map to show the map. But you could easily just plan a winery visit to every one of the main cities that we were talking about. Maybe Eilat, no, it's a bit too south down. But if you're in the Dead Sea, just an hour away, you could find some beautiful wineries and boutique wineries in the desert. If you're in Jerusalem, a 20-minute drive out, you could also find a really quite an amazing wine region. And the north is a huge concentration of wineries.
The most are in the north. That's where the craze starts.
Yeah, it's a bit wetter, it's a bit cooler, so the climate's a bit cooler up there. But there is no reason why not to just plan, a whole tour all over Israel, and it's easily possible to include some delicious wines. And tasting the wines from the different regions. The climate is different, and so are the grapes taste different. So we could do a tour with wine visits every day, almost in any part of the country.
Yeah, and I would just say, last time I worked for a hotel in Jerusalem, and a friend came in, and they wanted to do a wine tour. I actually just called the concierge, and he just set up the visits for me and had a car take me to the wineries. I'm not saying this can be replicated for everybody, but the wineries are all over the country, and on top of that, a lot of them offer family options. No, they don't give wine to the kids. They have a sort of a chocolate making or some other workshop for kids to do while the parents are tasting wine. Like I said about Israeli tour operators, they can be incredibly creative in bringing out whatever it is that you want out of your program.
Great. Next question, Chad, is if you could speak to if there's any dress requirements in the country.
Yes, I mean at holy sites, so going for the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Western Wall, you do have to have modest clothing covering, I believe, the shoulder and the knee.
The shoulder and the knee.
But that's the only place really where that's an issue, and that's just simply because of classical observances.
And in the main touristic spots also, there would always be some kind of people that are probably locals that would be renting out cover up.
They do
so
give that
if you end up forgetting or that happens, it won't be a problem to easily just get something to cover.
I believe it's actually the destination that gives those. Yeah, but they want people to see those sites. So even if you forget, normally there's somebody there that has something for you to cover up.
Yeah.
Great. Going back to the LGBT parade that you mentioned, is that a one-day event, or how long does that go on for?
So the actual Pride event, the march, is one day, and it takes from the morning till the afternoon. It's one big party, but actually all around, I would say it's Pride Week. It starts a few days earlier, and it will last a few days later. Not to say that because there's so many tours and so many people coming, especially for the event, I would be surprised if you could find things to do a whole month that are a bit out of the ordinary. But really for Pride, it would be good to take into account a week because there's lots of pre-parties leading to and post-parties. So I'd say one big party week.
Mm-hmm. And I also find that in that community, in the LGBTQ community, a lot of people do like to do more multi-destination, even with Israel, where they'll go to like a Berlin for Oktoberfest and then go spend some time on the beach in Tel Aviv, because those are cities that really are some of those gateway cities that they really enjoy. So that's just another food for thought for that market.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Next question is if there's a strong military presence in the country at all, if you see a lot of that, or armed civilians, things like that.
Yes, there is, but not in necessarily the sense that we have with our military. Basically, every Israeli citizen, or almost every Israeli citizen, goes to the army. And so a lot of the time it's they're 18, 19-year-old, I wouldn't say kids, young adults that are in the army and they're stationed, but they're really part of the scenery in a lot of ways, and they're part of the experience. A lot of programs have soldiers on the program simply so they meet an Israeli. It's not necessarily as buttoned up as our military is. These are people that it's part of being an Israeli. They very much are still, part of society, and it's not necessarily an obstacle to what people see. They aren't scary-looking and angry people. So it's hard to explain unless you've been there and seen it. but it's one of the actually bright spots of going, if you ask me, is going and talking to a soldier. And it's a very, like Shirley said, people are always looking out for one another, and I think that's where it comes from, is their experience in the Army.
Great. So I have time for one last question. I'm not sure if you touched on this at all, Chad, but if you could talk about any of the new archaeological discoveries in Israel, like Magdala or other things like that?
Magdala is one that they're still uncovering, and it's an ongoing work, yes. Basically, it's hard for me to stay on top of all of the different archaeological discoveries. They just recently, not so long ago, they found some coins from King Hezekiah's time period. Just a couple of weeks ago, they found a piece of parchment that I want to say was about, I think it was 3,000 years old, with written on it Jerusalem, which is the Jerusalem in Hebrew. So proof of the city of Jerusalem, well before the time of Jesus, and well before much of the time of Israel. It was really early on. So.
Oh, I was going to say, we're really, one of our goals would be to improve more on sending out information about interesting updates and news like that to agencies and to travel agents in general. So I would really like, of course, to stay in touch with everyone that's been listening today, so that you could be part in our mail distribution. And then from time to time, you may receive updates similar of latest archaeological findings, or maybe new wineries or new activities. So I think it would really be interesting.
Great. Thank you so much, Shirley. So I think that's all the time we have for questions today, but I'd be happy to send out Shirley and Chad's information to everyone to make sure you guys have it. As I mentioned at the beginning, this webinar was being recorded, so if you'd like to listen to the presentation again, it will be available at asta.org. I'd like to say a big thank you to our partners at the Israel Ministry of Tourism, to Shirley and Chad, and to everyone who's joined us for today's webinar. This will conclude today's presentation, and we hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Bye-bye.